Maggie Callahan dropped to her knees in the dirt. Not to pray, to beg. "Please," she whispered, gripping the auctioneer's boot. "Don't take my children. I'll do anything." He kicked her hand away like she was a stray dog. 41 men had looked at her today. 41 men had walked away. The territorial officer already held papers to scatter her 5 children across 3 states. Then a voice cut through the July heat. A stranger stepped forward, and Maggie realized that sometimes salvation comes wearing the face of a man the whole town fears. Subscribe to my channel and follow Maggie's journey to the very end. Drop a comment telling me which city you're watching from. I want to see how far this story travels. The gavel came down hard. "Sold! Lot 16, 1 mule, $12. Maggie Callahan flinched. Wood against wood, sharp as a gunshot. In 2 minutes, that gavel would fall for her. She pulled her children closer. 5 bodies pressed against her skirt, like they could disappear inside the worn fabric and hide there. The July sun beat down on Copper Springs town square, and sweat ran down Maggie's back, soaking through her only good dress. "Mama," her youngest, Lily, tugged her sleeve. "I'm thirsty." "I know, baby." "Mama," Rose, just 5 years old, started crying. "I want to go home." Home. Maggie almost laughed. They had no home. Not anymore. "Hush now." She knelt in the dusty street, pulling both little girls against her chest. "We're going to be just fine. You hear me? We're going to be just fine." She didn't believe it, but mothers lie to their children. That's what love looks like sometimes. The auction platform stood 4 feet above the crowd. Rough wooden planks, splintered and sun-bleached. Maggie had splinters in her palms from gripping that railing all morning. She didn't feel them anymore. She didn't feel much of anything except the heat and the fear. 41 men had walked past her today. 41. She'd counted every single one. Some had laughed. Some had sneered. Most just looked away, like she was something shameful, something they didn't want to see. "5 kids!" One had whistled low, loud enough for everyone to hear. "Might as well buy yourself a plague." "Look at her!" Another man spat tobacco juice near her feet. "Worn out as an old saddle. Who'd want that?" Maggie hadn't cried. She'd stopped crying 2 years ago when Patrick died in that mine collapse and left her with nothing but debt and 5 hungry mouths. Tears were a luxury. Tears didn't feed children. "Lot 17, the auctioneer's voice rang out. Harold Finch, thin as a fence post, spectacles sliding down his sweaty nose. He hadn't looked at Maggie once all day. "Margaret Ann Callahan, widow, 36 years of age, 5 children, ages 5 to 13. A murmur rolled through the crowd. Not pity. Something uglier. "Opening bid," Finch continued, voice flat as old beer. $75. Includes all passage fees and provisional custody of minor children. Silence. Maggie lifted her chin. Beside her, Ruth gripped her hand hard enough to hurt. 11 years old and already wearing the face of a woman who'd seen too much. "Mama," Ruth's voice cracked. "Nobody's bidding." "I know." "What do we do?" Maggie squeezed her daughter's fingers. "We wait." "For what?" She had no answer. Tommy stepped forward, her oldest, 13 years old, shoulders rigid, fists clenched at his sides. "I could work," he said through his teeth. "I could find a job. The mines are hiring. We don't need some stranger to—" "Tommy." Maggie's voice cut sharp. "Not now." "But Mama, I can—" "I said not now." He fell silent. But his fists stayed clenched, and his jaw trembled with a rage he was too young to carry. Sam pressed against his brother, 9 years old, too curious for his own good, always asking questions nobody wanted to answer. "Mama?" Sam's voice was small. "Why don't they want us?" Maggie's heart cracked right down the middle. "It ain't about wantin', sweetheart." "Then what's it about?" "Money. It's always about money." $60! Finch dropped the price, desperation creeping into his voice. "Surely someone needs a capable housekeeper, a cook, 5 workers in one family." Nothing. The crowd shifted. Some men drifted away, bored. Others lingered, watching with the same dead curiosity they'd give a horse with a broken leg. $50. Finch's voice pitched higher. "Final offer. Come now, gentlemen. A wife and 5 hands for the price of a good saddle." "Ain't nobody paying $50 for that." The voice came from the back. A big man in a sweat-stained shirt, arms crossed over his belly, tobacco juice staining his beard. "She's used up," he said, grinning at the crowd. "Fat as a Christmas goose and twice as useless. Only thing them kids are good for is cheap labor." Laughter rippled through the square. Maggie felt Ruth stiffen beside her, felt Tommy's rage radiating like heat off a stove, felt her younger children shrink against her, trying to disappear. She straightened her spine, looked the man dead in the eye. "My children," she said, her voice carrying clear across the square, "are worth more than every man in this crowd combined." Silence. The big man blinked. Then his face twisted with something ugly. "Why, you uppity—" "Garrett won't like that." The whisper came from somewhere in the crowd. Maggie didn't see who spoke, but she saw the reaction. Heads turning, eyes shifting toward the back of the square. Garrett. She'd heard that name twice since arriving in Copper Springs. Each time spoken like a curse. Each time followed by silence. Maggie scanned the crowd. Near the general store, half hidden in shadow, a man stood watching. Tall, fine coat despite the heat, face she couldn't quite see, but she felt his eyes on her. Heavy, hungry. A chill ran down her spine that had nothing to do with the weather. "Going once," Finch called weakly. Maggie's heart slammed against her ribs. "Going twice." Ruth made a sound, a small wounded animal sound. Behind the platform, a gray-haired man in a territorial officer's uniform shuffled papers. Howard Webb. Maggie had met him yesterday, had seen the way his eyes crawled over her body, had heard what he said when he thought she couldn't hear. "That one won't fetch $10. We'll be splitting them brats up by sundown." Now Webb caught her eye, smiled, a thin, cruel smile that made her skin crawl. Maggie looked at her children. 5 faces, 5 lives. Tommy trying to be brave, Ruth holding back tears, Sam confused and scared, Lily clutching her rag doll, little Rose with her thumb in her mouth. This was it. This was the moment she'd dreaded for 3 months. The moment when everything she'd fought for, everything she'd sacrificed, everything she'd suffered, it all came to nothing. She'd failed them. She'd failed Patrick. She'd failed $300. The voice came from nowhere and everywhere, deep as thunder, rough as gravel. Every head in the square turned. A man walked forward from the far edge of the crowd. Not the shadow near the store. Someone else. Someone Maggie hadn't noticed before. He was tall, broad through the shoulders, dressed in worn denims and a faded work shirt, sleeves rolled up past his forearms. A battered hat pulled low over his face. Dark hair, streaked with gray, curled past his collar. But it was his face that stopped Maggie's breath. hard jaw, sharp cheekbones, a scar running from under his ear down across his throat. Rope burn. The kind a man gets when someone tries to hang him and doesn't finish the job. And his eyes. Gray. Pale gray. Like storm clouds building over the mountains. They were fixed on her. The crowd parted for him like water around a stone. Nobody touched him. Nobody spoke to him. They just moved aside, watching with eyes that held fear and something else. Recognition. "Did he say 300?" Finch's voice cracked. "You heard me." The stranger stopped at the base of the platform. His voice carried no warmth, but no cruelty either, just fact. 300 gold for the woman and all 5 children. A gasp rippled through the crowd. "That's..." Finch swallowed hard. "That's 4 times the asking price." "I know what it is." Webb pushed forward, face red and sweating. "Now hold on just a minute. There are procedures, background checks. This man has a reputation, then follow your procedures." The stranger reached into his pocket and pulled out a leather pouch. The coins inside clinked heavy. 300 in gold. Count it if you want, but count fast. I got work to do, and I don't intend to stand here all day. Maggie stared at him. This stranger who had just paid a fortune for a woman the whole town called worthless. "Who are you?" The words came out before she could stop them. The man looked up at her. Those gray eyes held hers without flinching. "Name's Whitmore," he said. "Josiah Whitmore. Folks call me Joe." Behind Maggie, Tommy sucked in a breath. "Whitmore," he whispered. "Mama, that's..." "I know who he is." The stranger's mouth twitched, not quite a smile. "Then you know I ain't the sociable type." "They say you killed a man." "They say a lot of things." "Are they true?" Something shifted in those gray eyes, something old and heavy. "Some." He held her gaze, didn't flinch, didn't look away. "I don't lie about what I am, ma'am. But I don't hurt women. I don't hurt children. And I keep my word." Maggie felt her children pressing against her, felt their fear, their confusion, their desperate, fragile hope. "Why?" she asked. "Why would you pay $300 for a woman nobody wants?" Josiah Whitmore was quiet for a long moment. Then he said, soft enough that only she could hear, "Because I know what it's like. To be the one nobody wants." Maggie's throat tightened. Before she could respond, Webb shouldered forward again. "This is highly irregular. Mr. Whitmore has a history." The territorial authority," Finch interrupted, already counting coins with trembling fingers, "will be satisfied with $300 in gold, which, I might add, is considerably more than they expected to receive." "But..." "The sale stands, Mr. Webb." Finch's voice sharpened. "Unless you'd like to explain to your superiors why you turned down 4 times the asking price." Webb's face went purple, but he said nothing. A new voice cut in. "The law is clear." Everyone turned. Reverend Thomas Abernathy stood at the edge of the platform. 60 years old, white-haired, face lined with the kind of weariness that came from watching too many tragedies unfold in a town that didn't much care for God or mercy. "Highest bidder takes the contract," Abernathy continued, "unless Mrs. Callahan objects." All eyes turned to Maggie. She looked at Josiah Whitmore, at his scarred face, his storm-gray eyes, his hands, big, rough, capable of violence, but resting easy at his sides, not reaching for any weapon. She looked at her children. She looked at Webb and his papers. The words she could read even from here: Orphan Placement Act, Work Farm Assignment, Foundling Home Transfer. 5 children, scattered across 3 states, growing up alone. forgetting her face, forgetting each other. "I don't object," Maggie said clearly. "I accept." Josiah nodded once. "Then let's go." The paperwork took minutes. Maggie's hand shook as she signed. Margaret Ann Callahan. She wondered if she'd ever write that name again. As she stepped down from the platform, a woman grabbed her arm. Beatrice Harmon, head of the Copper Springs Ladies' Aid Society. Sharp face, sharper tongue. "You don't know what you're doing," Mrs. Harmon hissed. "That man is dangerous. He lives alone in the hills like an animal. Hasn't spoken to another soul in years. There are stories. There are always stories." Maggie pulled her arm free. "He killed Marcus Dawes in cold blood. Shot him right in the middle of Main Street." "Did he now?" "Everyone saw it." Maggie turned to face the woman. Her voice dropped low. "Mrs. Harmon, every person in this square looked at me today and saw something to throw away. Every one of them watched my children cry and did nothing. That man," she pointed at Josiah, who was helping Ruth into a waiting wagon, "looked at me and saw something worth saving." She stepped closer. "You want to tell me who I should trust?" Mrs. Harmon's mouth opened, closed, opened again. Maggie didn't wait for words. Josiah had a wagon waiting at the edge of the square. 2 sturdy draft horses stamped in the heat, tails flicking at flies. The wagon bed was loaded with supplies: sacks of flour, salt pork, blankets, tools. He lifted the younger children in, one by one. Rose first, then Lily, settling them on a pile of blankets like they were made of glass. Sam climbed up himself, then turned to help Lily arrange her doll. "I can do it," Lily said, pushing his hand away. "I know you can," Sam said cheerfully. "I'm helping anyway." Ruth scrambled up without assistance, then sat with her hands folded in her lap, eyes fixed on the stranger who had bought her mother. Tommy stood apart, arms crossed, jaw tight. "I ain't going," he said. Maggie turned. "Tommy, I ain't getting in that wagon. I don't know him. I don't trust him. For all we know, he's worse than Thomas Patrick Callahan." Maggie's voice could have frozen the July sun. "You get in that wagon right now, you hear me? Whatever happens next, we face it together, as a family. That's what your father would want." Tommy's face crumpled, just for a second. Then he pulled it back together. "Pa wouldn't want us with some stranger. Pa would want you alive. Pa would want your sisters safe. Pa would want you to stop being a fool and get in that wagon." For a long moment, neither of them moved. Then Tommy climbed into the wagon bed. He positioned himself between his sisters and Josiah. A barrier. A warning. Josiah's mouth twitched again. That almost smile. He offered Maggie his hand. She hesitated only a moment before taking it. His palm was rough, calloused, warm. "Thank you," she said quietly. "Don't thank me yet." He helped her onto the wagon seat. "It's a full day's ride, hard country, and I don't make promises I can't keep." "Neither do I." He looked at her then. Something flickered in those gray eyes. Surprise, maybe, or respect. "Mama?" Ruth's voice came from the wagon bed. "There's a man watching us." Maggie turned. Near the general store, the shadow she'd noticed before had moved into the light. He was handsome. Too handsome. The kind of handsome that made women foolish and men jealous. Dark hair slicked back with pomade. Fine linen suit, somehow spotless despite the dust. A gold watch chain glinting at his vest. He tipped his hat to her, a mockery of courtesy. "Mrs. Whitmore," he called across the square. "My congratulations on your arrangement." Maggie felt Josiah stiffen beside her. "Garrett." Josiah's voice went flat. Dangerous. Joe. The man smiled. It didn't reach his eyes. Been a while. 2 years? 3? You should come into town more often. We miss your charming company. We're leaving. So I see. Garrett walked closer, hands in his pockets. That terrible smile never wavering. $300. That's quite an investment for... Well... His eyes slid over Maggie. Slow. Insulting. Damaged goods. Tommy lunged forward in the wagon bed. You take that back. Tommy, no. Maggie grabbed his arm. Sit down. But Mama, I know what he said, and it doesn't matter. Garrett laughed. Soft. Cold. Loyal children. That's good. Loyalty is valuable. His eyes moved past Maggie, into the wagon bed. Found Ruth. Lingered there. Maggie's blood turned to ice. She stood up on the wagon seat, blocking his view with her body. My children, she said, are none of your concern. Oh, but everything in this town is my concern, Mrs. Whitmore. Garrett spread his hands. That's the burden of responsibility. I own the mines, the saloons, the general store, half the mortgages. He paused. Most of the people, one way or another. You don't own us. Not yet. Josiah climbed onto the wagon seat. His hand rested on something beside him. Casual, but Maggie saw his knuckles go white. Walk away, Garrett. Or what? Garrett's smile widened. You'll shoot me? In front of all these good people? In front of those children? I'll do what needs doing. Same as always. For a long moment, nobody moved. The crowd watched in silence. The horses stamped nervously. Somewhere, a dog barked. Then Garrett stepped back. Safe travels, Mrs. Whitmore. His eyes found Maggie's, held them. I'm sure we'll meet again. Copper Springs is such a small town, and I have such a long memory. He turned and walked away. The crowd parted for him, same as they'd parted for Josiah, but differently. With Josiah, it had been wariness. With Garrett, it was fear. Josiah snapped the reins. The horses lurched forward. Copper Springs fell away behind them. Maggie didn't look back. For 10 minutes, neither of them spoke. The wagon creaked. The horses' hooves crunched through the dry dirt. The children whispered among themselves in the wagon bed. Who is he? Maggie finally asked. That man. Garrett. Ezra Garrett. Josiah's jaw tightened. Owns most of this territory, one way or another. What does he want? Everything. Josiah's hands flexed on the reins. Power, money, women, whatever catches his eye. He was looking at Ruth. I know. Maggie's stomach turned. Will he come after us? Josiah was quiet for a long moment. Probably. Then why are we leaving? Why not stay in town where there are people, witnesses? Because witnesses don't stop men like Garrett. Josiah looked at her. And because my land is the only place in this territory he doesn't control. How is that possible? Because he learned a long time ago that coming onto my property costs more than it's worth. Maggie studied his profile, the hard set of his jaw, the scar on his throat, the way he held himself like a man who expected violence and was ready to meet it. What happened? She asked quietly. Between you and him. Josiah didn't answer for a long time. The wagon rolled on. The hills grew closer. The town disappeared behind a rise. He wanted something of mine, Josiah finally said. I didn't let him take it. What did he want? Doesn't matter now. His voice closed the subject. What matters is, he knows better than to follow me home. Maggie wanted to push, wanted answers, but something in his face stopped her. Instead, she turned to check on her children. Ruth sat rigid, arms wrapped around herself. Tommy had positioned himself as a barrier between his sisters and the front of the wagon. Sam was peppering Lily with whispered questions. Rose had fallen asleep against a flour sack, thumbs still in her mouth. "They're scared," Maggie said quietly. "They should be." Josiah glanced back at them. "Fear keeps you alive." "They're children." "Children die same as anyone else if they ain't careful." The words were harsh, but his voice wasn't, and when Rose whimpered in her sleep, Maggie saw his hands tighten on the reins, saw something flash across his face. Something that looked like pain. "You ever had children, Mr. Whitmore?" He didn't answer, but she saw his jaw clench, saw his knuckles go white, and she knew. She didn't press. Some wounds weren't meant to be opened. Not yet. Not by strangers. They rode in silence as the sun began its slow descent toward the mountains. And somewhere behind them, in a town called Copper Springs, Ezra Garrett stood at his office window, watching the dust settle on the road north. $300, he murmured, for a widow and 5 mouths to feed. He smiled. "Oh, Joe, you always did have a weakness for strays." He turned to the man waiting in the shadows. "Follow them. Don't let them see you. I want to know everything. Where he takes her, how he keeps her, every weakness, every vulnerability." The man nodded and slipped out. Garrett poured himself a whiskey, held it up to the fading light. "You took something from me once, Joe Whitmore. Cost me everything I loved." He drank. "Now I'm going to take something from you." The wagon had barely cleared the last buildings of Copper Springs when Tommy's voice cut through the silence. "He's following us." Maggie turned. Her son was staring back at the road, his jaw tight, his hands balled into fists. "Who?" "A rider. Been behind us since we left town. Staying far enough back, he thinks we can't see him." Josiah didn't turn around. His hands stayed steady on the reins. "I know." "You know?" Maggie's voice sharpened. "And you didn't think to mention it?" "Didn't want to scare the little ones." "Mama?" Lily tugged at Ruth's sleeve. "Who's following us?" "Nobody, sweetheart. Just a traveler going the same direction." "That ain't true." Sam sat up straighter, craning his neck to look. "Tommy said somebody's following us. Is it the scary man from before? The one who looked at Ruth funny?" "Sam, enough." "But, Mama," "I said enough." Josiah pulled the horses to a stop. Maggie's heart lurched. "What are you doing?" "Solving a problem." He handed her the reins. "Keep moving. Don't stop for nothing. The road forks about a mile ahead. Take the left path. It leads to a creek. Wait there." "Wait, where are you going?" But Josiah was already climbing down from the wagon. He reached under the seat and pulled out a rifle Maggie hadn't noticed before. "Joe." He looked up at her. Those gray eyes were flat, cold. The eyes of a man who had done violence before and would do it again without hesitation. "I won't be long." "You can't just... the children..." "The children will be fine. You'll be fine." He stepped back from the wagon. "Take the left fork. Wait at the creek. I'll find you." "And if you don't?" Something flickered across his face, almost a smile. "Then you keep going. The ranch is another 4 hours north. There's a map in my saddlebag. Enough supplies to last a week." "Joe, I can't." "You can." His voice softened, just for a moment. "You're stronger than you think, Maggie Callahan. Now go." He slapped the nearest horse's flank. The wagon lurched forward. Maggie grabbed the reins, her heart pounding. She looked back once, saw Josiah standing in the middle of the road, rifle in hand, watching them go. Then she turned forward and didn't look back again. Tommy climbed onto the seat beside her. "I should stay with him." "No." "Mama, I can help. You can help by protecting your sisters." Maggie's voice came out harder than she intended. "That's your job right now. That's all I need from you." Tommy's face twisted with frustration, but he didn't argue. He climbed back into the wagon bed and positioned himself between his sisters and the road behind them. "Is Mr. Whitmore going to die?" Rose's small voice trembled. "No, baby." "How do you know?" Maggie didn't answer. Because she didn't know. She didn't know anything anymore, except that a stranger had paid $300 for her family and was now risking his life for people he'd met 2 hours ago. It didn't make sense. None of it made sense. The fork appeared just where Josiah said it would. Maggie took the left path without hesitation. The road narrowed, winding through low hills until she heard the sound of running water. "There," Ruth pointed ahead, "the creek." Maggie pulled the wagon to a stop beside the water. The horses drank gratefully. The children climbed out, stretching cramped limbs, but nobody wandered far. They waited. 5 minutes. 10. 20. Sam kicked at rocks by the water's edge. Lily sat motionless, clutching her rag doll. Rose had fallen asleep against Ruth's shoulder. Tommy paced back and forth, wearing a path in the dirt. "He's not coming back," Tommy said finally. "We should keep moving." "We wait." "Mama!" "We wait, Tommy. He said he'd come, and we wait." "You don't even know him. He's a stranger. Why do you trust him?" "Because I don't have a choice." The words exploded out of Maggie before she could stop them. "Because there is no one else. Because if we keep running, we run forever. And I am tired, Tommy. I am so tired of running." Her voice broke on the last word. Tommy stared at her. His anger crumbled, replaced by something worse. Fear. The fear of a child watching his mother fall apart. "Mama, I'm sorry." Maggie pressed her hands to her face. "I'm sorry. I shouldn't have. I'm sorry." "No." Tommy moved closer. His hand touched her arm, awkward and gentle. "I'm sorry. I keep making things harder." "You don't." "I do. I know I do." His voice dropped. "I'm scared, Mama. I'm so scared all the time, and I don't know what to do with it except get angry." Maggie pulled him into her arms. He was too old for it, too tall, but he let her hold him anyway. "We're all scared, sweetheart. That's allowed. What if he doesn't come back? Then we figure something out, together, like we always do." "Promise?" "I promise." Hoofbeats. Maggie's head snapped up. Tommy pulled away, reaching for a rock, the only weapon he could find. A rider emerged from the trees. Josiah. He was alone. The rifle rested across his saddle. His face was unreadable, but his hands were steady. "Joe!" Maggie's voice came out strangled. "The man who was following us." "Won't be following anyone for a while." "Did you?" "No." Josiah dismounted, leading his horse to the water. "He'll live. Might walk with a limp for a few months, but he'll live." "Who was he?" "One of Garrett's men. Name's Silas Reed. Low-level muscle. More mean than smart." Josiah looked at her. "He was supposed to report back on where I was taking you. Now he's got a different story to tell." "What story?" "That coming after my family is a bad idea." My family. The words hung in the air between them. Josiah seemed to realize what he'd said. His jaw tightened, and he turned away, busying himself with his horse. "We should keep moving. Still got a few hours of daylight left." Maggie wanted to press him, wanted to ask what that word meant. Family. Wanted to know why a man who'd been alone for 10 years would claim 5 children he'd never met. but she didn't. Some questions had to wait. They loaded back into the wagon and continued north. The land changed as they traveled. Flat scrubland gave way to rolling hills. The July heat softened as they climbed higher. The children grew quiet, exhausted by fear and uncertainty. "Mr. Whitmore?" Sam's voice broke the silence. "Do you have any kids?" Maggie saw Josiah's shoulders stiffen. "Sam," her voice carried warning. "That's personal." "It's all right." Josiah's voice was rough. "Had a boy once. A long time ago." "What happened to him?" "He died." The words fell like stones into still water. "I'm sorry," Sam said solemnly. "Was he sick?" "Fever. Him and his mama both. Took him in the same week." Ruth made a soft sound. Maggie's throat tightened. "What was his name?" Lily asked quietly. Josiah didn't answer for a long moment. "Jacob. His name was Jacob. He was 5 years old. Rose was 5. Maggie looked at the little girl sleeping against Ruth's shoulder. 5 years old, with dark curls and her father's stubborn chin. "How old would he be now?" Tommy asked. His voice had lost its edge. "If he'd lived?" 15. Almost a man. Almost Tommy's age. "I'm sorry, Mr. Whitmore." Ruth's voice was barely a whisper. "That must be very hard." It was. Still is some days. Josiah cleared his throat. "But grief's like weather. Comes and goes. You learn to carry it." "Does it get easier?" Ruth pressed. "No, but you get stronger." Silence settled over them again. But it was a different silence now. Softer. Shared. They rode for another hour before Maggie spoke. "Your wife, what was her name?" "Ellen." Josiah's voice caught on the word. "Ellen Marie. She had red hair, laughed at everything, said I was the most serious man she'd ever met, and it was her job to fix that." "Did she fix it?" "For a while." That almost smile crossed his face. "She taught me that life didn't have to be so heavy, that there was room for joy even when things were hard." "She sounds wonderful." She was. "How did you meet her?" Josiah was quiet for a moment. When he spoke, his voice was distant, lost in memory. "I was 22, fresh out of the war, hadn't slept right in months, hadn't smiled in longer. I wandered into this town in Kansas, looking for work, looking for anything that would make me feel human again." He shook his head. "She was working at her father's general store. I walked in to buy supplies and she looked at me, really looked at me, and said, 'Mister, you look like you ain't had a decent meal in a month. Sit down and eat before you fall over.'" Maggie felt a smile tug at her lips. "Bold woman." "Boldest I ever met. I tried to tell her I was fine, didn't need charity. She just laughed and pushed me into a chair." His voice softened. "Nobody had been kind to me in so long. I forgot what it felt like." "So you stayed?" "Couldn't leave if I'd wanted to. She had me caught from the first day." "How long were you married?" 7 years. 7 good years." He paused. "Sometimes I think that's more than most people get. 7 years of real happiness. Maybe I should be grateful instead of bitter." "Are you? Grateful?" "Most days. Some days I'm just angry that it ended. Angry at God, at the fever, at myself for not being able to save them." Maggie understood that anger. She'd lived with it for 2 years. "Patrick used to say that loving someone is the bravest thing a person can do," she said quietly, "because you're giving them the power to break you." "Smart man." "He was." Her voice caught.
I keep waiting to stop missing him. Keep thinking one day I'll wake up and the hole in my chest will be gone. But it never is.
It won't be. Josiah looked at her. But the hole gets easier to live with. You build around it. Learn to carry it.
Is that what you did? Built around it?
No. His jaw tightened. I tried to bury it. Came out here, built a ranch, convinced myself I didn't need anyone. Thought if I stayed alone, I couldn't lose anything else.
Did it work?
For a while. Then I saw you on that platform, holding your children together while the whole world tried to tear them apart. His voice dropped. And I realized I'd been dead for 10 years, just too stubborn to lie down. Maggie's heart stuttered in her chest.
Joe.
I ain't asking for anything. He cut her off quickly. Don't want you thinking I bought you expecting that. I meant what I said before. You'll have your own space, your own life. He stopped, started again. I just needed to be around living people again. Needed to remember what it felt like to care about something. Maggie reached over and touched his arm. He flinched, then stilled.
Thank you, she said quietly, for being honest.
Ain't much else I got to give.
It's enough.
They rode in silence after that. But something had shifted between them. A wall had come down, just a little. A door had opened, just a crack. The sun was touching the western hills when trouble found them again.
Mama.
Ruth's voice was tight.
There's smoke ahead.
Maggie saw it too. A black column rising against the orange sky, too thick and dark to be a campfire. Josiah pulled the wagon to a stop. Stay here.
Joe.
I mean it this time. Stay here with the children. Don't move until I come back. He was gone before she could argue, riding hard toward the smoke. Maggie waited. Her hands gripped the reins so tight her knuckles went white. 5 minutes passed. 10.
Mama, I'm scared.
Lily's voice trembled. I know, baby. It's going to be all right.
What if Mr. Whitmore doesn't come back this time?
He'll come back. But what if... Hoofbeats. Maggie's heart leaped. But it wasn't Josiah. 3 riders emerged from the brush, blocking the road ahead. They wore dusty clothes and hard expressions. One of them, the leader, smiled when he saw the wagon full of children. Well, well, what do we have here? Maggie's hand found the pistol Josiah had left under the seat. We don't want trouble. Nobody ever does, ma'am. The leader nudged his horse closer. Nice wagon you got there. Nice horses. Bet you got some nice supplies in that wagon bed, too. We have nothing of value. That's so. His eyes moved past her, into the wagon, found Ruth, lingered. I'd say you got plenty of value. Real plenty. Maggie raised the pistol. Come any closer, and I'll put a bullet through your eye. The men laughed. Lady, you ever even fired that thing? Want to find out? The leader's smile faded. He studied her face, saw something there that gave him pause. Ain't worth dying over some supplies, he said finally. Boys, let's... She's bluffing. One of the other men pushed his horse forward. Look at her. She's shaking. Maggie's hands were shaking, but her aim was steady. Last warning. The man kept coming. Maggie pulled the trigger. The shot went wide, but close enough to make the man's horse rear. He cursed, fighting for control. You crazy woman! The next one won't miss. Maggie cocked the pistol again. Her voice didn't waver. I've got 5 children behind me, and nothing left to lose. Ask yourself if some supplies are worth your life. For a long moment, nobody moved. Then the leader laughed. A different sound this time, almost admiring. "I believe you, ma'am. I truly do." He tipped his hat. "Boys, we're leaving. This one's got teeth."
They wheeled their horses around and rode away into the brush. Maggie didn't lower the pistol until they were out of sight. "Mama," Tommy's voice was awed. "You were amazing." I was terrified. "But you did it anyway." Yeah, she had. Her hands started shaking in earnest now. She pressed them against her thighs, trying to make them stop. "Is it over?" Rose's small voice came from the wagon bed. "It's over, baby. The bad men are gone." "Did you shoot them?" "No, sweetheart. I just scared them away." "Good," Rose yawned. "I don't want anyone to die." Neither do I, Maggie thought. Neither do I. Josiah returned 20 minutes later. His face was grim. "Homestead about a mile east. Burned to the ground. Family of 4. Maggie's stomach dropped. "Are they?" "Alive. Barely. Garrett's men hit them this morning, took everything, left them with nothing." "Why?" "Because the father owed Garrett money. Couldn't pay." Josiah's jaw tightened. "This is what he does, Maggie. This is who he is. Anyone who crosses him, anyone who owes him, anyone who has something he wants, he takes it, destroys it, leaves nothing behind. And he wants us. He wants to hurt me. You and the children are just tools to do it." "Why? What did you do to him?" Josiah was quiet for a long moment. 10 years ago, Ellen and I were living in Copper Springs. I worked for Garrett, breaking horses. Good money, steady work. His voice hardened. Then I found out where that money really came from. The saloons, the brothels, the mines where men died because he wouldn't pay for proper equipment. "So you left?" "So I spoke up, went to the sheriff, told him everything I knew." "What happened?" "Sheriff was on Garrett's payroll, always had been." Josiah's hands tightened on the reins. 2 days later, our house burned down. Ellen barely made it out alive. We ran, came up here, built a new life. "But the fever—" "The fever took her before Garrett could." His voice cracked. "Sometimes I think that was God's way of protecting her, taking her before that monster could get his hands on her." Maggie's chest ached. "Joe, I'm so sorry." "Don't be sorry. Be ready." He looked at her. "Garrett's coming. Maybe not today, maybe not tomorrow, but he's coming. And when he does, we're going to need to be ready to fight." "I don't know how to fight." "You held off 3 men with a pistol and a steady hand. I'd say you already know more than you think." Maggie blinked. "How did you—" "Heard the shot. Rode back fast as I could. Got close enough to see you facing down those bastards like you'd done it 100 times. That almost smile crossed his face. "You got steel in your spine, Maggie Callahan. Don't let anyone tell you different." For the first time since Patrick died, Maggie felt something warm bloom in her chest. Something that felt almost like hope. "Thank you, Joe." "Don't thank me yet. We still got a long way to go." They pushed on as the sun set and the stars emerged. The children fell asleep one by one, worn out by the day's terror and turmoil. Maggie should have slept too, but she couldn't stop watching Josiah. The way his hands held the reins, the way his eyes never stopped scanning the darkness, the way he carried himself like a man who expected violence and was ready to meet it. "You should rest," he said without looking at her. "Can't." "Try." "I keep thinking about what you said, about Garrett, about what's coming." "Don't borrow trouble. There'll be enough when it arrives." "Easy for you to say." Nothing about any of this is easy." He glanced at her. "But we take it one day at a time, one problem at a time. That's all anyone can do."
My mother used to say that. One day at a time.
Smart woman.
She died when I was 12. Consumption.
I'm sorry.
It was a long time ago.
Maggie pulled her shawl tighter.
Sometimes I barely remember her face.
Other times I see it so clearly, it takes my breath away.
That's how memory works. Comes and goes.
Do you still see Ellen clearly? Josiah was quiet for a moment.
Sometimes, late at night, when I can't sleep, I see her standing in the kitchen, laughing at something I said. I see Jacob running through the yard, chasing butterflies. His voice roughened. Then I wake up, and they're gone all over again.
That sounds unbearable.
It is, but it's also the only way I have left to see them, so I take it.
Maggie reached over and touched his arm again. This time, he didn't flinch.
You're not as alone as you think you are, Joe Whitmore.
He looked at her. Those gray eyes, so cold when she'd first seen them, held something warmer now, something almost like hope.
Neither are you, Maggie Callahan.
They rode on through the darkness, two broken people carrying 5 sleeping children toward an uncertain future.
Behind them, somewhere in the night,
Ezra Garrett sat in his fine office and poured himself a whiskey. "Well?" he asked the man standing in the shadows.
"Lost him.
That Silas Reed turned back halfway through. Said Whitmore shot his horse out from under him." Garrett's jaw tightened. "And the woman?" "Still with Whitmore, heading north." "Good." Garrett drained his glass. "Let them run. Let them think they're safe. I've waited 10 years for this. I can wait a few more days." "What do you want us to do?" "Gather the men, all of them, every gun I own." The man hesitated. "That's a lot of firepower for one rancher." "It's not about the rancher," Garrett smiled, that cold, terrible smile. "It's about making him watch, making him suffer, taking away everything he loves, piece by piece, until there's nothing left." "And the woman? The children?" "The woman will serve her purpose. The children—" He paused, considering. "The older girl stays. The rest can be sold. There's always a market for young workers."
"Yes, sir."
"And Marcus?"
"Sir?"
"Make sure Whitmore sees it coming. Make sure he knows there's nothing he can do to stop it." Garrett poured another whiskey. "I want him to feel what I felt. I want him to know what it's like to lose everything." The man nodded and slipped out into the night. Garrett raised his glass to the darkness. "To old debts," he whispered, "and slow repayment." He drank alone, and somewhere on the road north, Maggie Callahan, who had been sold for $300 on a hot July afternoon, fell asleep against a stranger's shoulder. She dreamed of her husband, of her children laughing in a house that no longer existed, of a man with gray eyes and a scarred throat, standing between her family and the darkness. When she woke, the sun was rising over the mountains, and Josiah Whitmore was watching her with an expression she couldn't quite read. "We're here," he said quietly. Maggie sat up, blinking in the golden light, and there, spread out before her, was Whitmore Ridge. Home. The children tumbled out of the wagon before it fully stopped. Sam ran toward the horses in the pasture, his exhaustion forgotten. Lily chased after him, her rag doll bouncing against her hip. Rose clung to Ruth's hand, thumb in her mouth, blinking at this new world with wide, uncertain eyes. Tommy hung back, his eyes swept over the cabin, the barn, the fences stretching toward the hills, taking measure, looking for threats. "It's safe here," Josiah said, climbing down from the wagon. Safest place in the territory. You sure about that? I'm sure. Tommy didn't look convinced, but he didn't argue. Maggie stepped down from the wagon seat, her legs unsteady after the long ride. She pressed her hands against the small of her back, working out the knots. How long have you lived here? 10 years. Built it all myself. After Ellen and Jacob, Josiah stopped. Started again. After I lost them. Maggie heard what he didn't say. After he buried his wife and son. After he came to these mountains to die and somehow kept living instead. Show me inside? The cabin was simple, clean. A stone fireplace dominated one wall. A rough-hewn table with 2 chairs. A bed in the corner, covered with a faded quilt. Nothing personal. No photographs. No decorations. Just the bare bones of survival. It ain't much, Josiah said. It's perfect. He looked at her like she'd spoken a foreign language. The roof doesn't leak? The walls are solid? There's food in the pantry and wood for the fire. Maggie met his eyes. After where we've been, this is a palace. Something shifted in his face. Something almost like hope. I'll build more rooms. There's space to expand. The children need proper beds, not just blankets on the floor. That can wait. No, it can't. His jaw tightened. They deserve better than this. You all do. Maggie touched his arm. He flinched, then stilled. Joe, we've been sleeping in abandoned barns for 3 months. We've been eating scraps and wearing rags and running from debt collectors who wanted to take my children. Her voice softened. This is the first time in 2 years I've felt safe. Don't apologize for that. Josiah stared at her for a long moment. You're not what I expected, he said quietly. Neither are you. Mama! Sam's voice rang out from outside. There's a dog! Mr. Whitmore has a dog! Maggie frowned. You said your dog died. He did. Josiah moved to the door. That's not my dog. They stepped outside to find Sam crouched near the barn, hand extended toward a scraggly mutt with matted fur and ribs showing through its skin. Sam, get away from that animal. But Mama, he's hungry. Look at him. The dog whined, tail tucked between its legs. It looked like it hadn't eaten in weeks. Stray, Josiah said. Probably wandered up from one of the abandoned homesteads. Can we keep him? Sam's eyes were huge. Please? He doesn't have anyone, just like us. Sam, please, Mama. I'll take care of him. I'll feed him and brush him and teach him tricks. Please. Maggie looked at Josiah. He shrugged. Your call. We don't have enough food for ourselves, let alone a dog. I'll share mine. Sam's voice was fierce. I don't care. He needs us. Maggie looked at her son, at the desperate hope in his eyes, at the way he'd positioned himself between the dog and the world, protecting something even smaller and weaker than himself. Fine, but he's your responsibility. Sam whooped with joy. The dog's tail started wagging, slowly at first, then faster. I'm going to call him Lucky, because he's lucky he found us. More like we're lucky he found us, Ruth said quietly. She'd come to stand beside Maggie, Rose still clinging to her hand. Dogs are good for protection. This dog couldn't protect himself from a rabbit. He will, once he's fed and loved. Ruth looked at Josiah. Everything gets stronger when it's loved. Josiah's face went still. He turned away without a word and walked toward the barn. Did I say something wrong? Ruth asked. No, sweetheart. You said something right. Maggie squeezed her shoulder. That's sometimes harder to hear. The first 3 days passed in a blur of work. Maggie scrubbed the cabin from top to bottom. Ruth organized the pantry. Tommy helped Josiah repair fences that had fallen into disrepair. Sam fed Lucky scraps until the dog's ribs started to disappear. Lily and Rose played in the yard, their laughter echoing off the mountains. It almost felt normal, almost felt like home. On the fourth night, Maggie woke to the sound of screaming. She was on her feet before she was fully awake, heart pounding, hands reaching for children who weren't there. "Ruth? Tommy? Sam?" "We're here, Mama." Ruth's voice came from the darkness. "We're all here."
Then who? Another scream, raw, anguished, coming from outside. "Stay here." Maggie grabbed the pistol Josiah had given her. "Don't move until I come back." "Mama, wait!" But she was already out the door. Josiah was on his knees in the dirt beside the barn. His hands were pressed against his head. His body shook with sobs. "Ellen, Ellen, please, don't leave me. Don't." He wasn't awake. Maggie lowered the pistol. Her heart ached at the sight of the strong, stoic man, broken open by dreams. "Joe," she knelt beside him. "Joe, wake up." He didn't hear her. His hands clawed at the ground, at something only he could see. "I can save them. Let me save them. Please, please. Joe!" Maggie grabbed his shoulders. "You're dreaming. Wake up!" His eyes flew open, wild, terrified. For a moment, he didn't see her. He saw something else. Someone else. Then recognition flooded his face. "Maggie? You are having a nightmare." He looked around, at the barn, at his hands covered in dirt, at her, kneeling beside him in her nightgown. "I'm sorry." His voice was raw. "I didn't mean to wake you." "How often does this happen?" "Often enough." "Joe, go back inside. I'm fine." "You're not fine." "I said go back inside." The words came out harsh, sharp. He flinched at his own voice. "I'm sorry. I didn't mean—" "Don't." Maggie sat down beside him. The dirt was cold through her nightgown, but she didn't move. "You don't have to apologize for grief." "It's been 10 years." "Grief doesn't have a timeline." Josiah was quiet for a long moment. When he spoke, his voice was barely a whisper. "I dream about the fever, about watching them die, about being helpless to stop it." His hands clenched in his lap. "Every night for 10 years, I watch my wife and son die. And every morning I wake up, and they're still gone. I dream about Patrick sometimes, about the day they came to tell me about the mine collapse." Maggie's voice caught. "In my dreams, I always run to the mine. Always think I can save him if I just run fast enough. But I never make it in time." "Does it ever stop?" "No, but it gets easier to carry." He looked at her. Those gray eyes, usually so guarded, were open now, vulnerable. "How do you do it? Keep going, I mean, with 5 children depending on you, with everything you've lost." "I don't have a choice." Maggie pulled her knees to her chest. "Some mornings I wake up and the weight of it all is so heavy I can barely breathe. But then Rose crawls into my lap, or Sam asks a ridiculous question, or Tommy tries to act tough and I see his father in his face." She shook her head. "They need me, so I keep going." Ellen used to say that the children were what kept her moving forward. She was right. Silence stretched between them. Comfortable. Shared. "Thank you," Josiah said finally. "For what?" "For not running away. Most people see me like this and they—" He stopped. "They look at me different after." "You're a man who lost his family. That doesn't make you weak. It makes you human." "I don't feel human most days. I feel like a ghost, going through the motions, waiting for something to make me feel alive again." Maggie reached over and took his hand.
He went still. His fingers trembled against hers. "Joe, look at me." He did. "You saved my family. You gave us a home. You put yourself between my children and men who wanted to hurt them." Her voice was steady. "That's not a ghost. That's a good man who forgot what he was worth." Josiah's breath caught. "Maggie, you don't have to say anything. Just know that I see you, the real you, not the man the town fears, not the legend people whisper about. Just you." For a long moment, neither of them moved. Then Josiah squeezed her hand. "Thank you." "Come inside. It's cold out here." "I should stay, keep watch." "You can keep watch from the porch, with a blanket, and maybe some coffee." That almost smile crossed his face. "Yes, ma'am." They went inside together. On the 5th day, Tommy found Josiah in the barn, cleaning his rifle. "Teach me." Josiah looked up. "Teach you what?" "How to shoot, how to fight, how to protect my family." "You're 13. So? You said Garrett's coming. Said we need to be ready." Tommy's jaw tightened. "I want to be ready." Josiah set down the rifle, studied the boy for a long moment. "Your mama know you're asking me this?" "No." "She won't like it." "I don't care." Tommy's voice cracked. "I couldn't protect them before. When Pa died, when we lost the house, when they put us on that auction block." His hands clenched into fists. "I'm never going to be that helpless again." Josiah was quiet for a moment. Then he stood. "All right." "All right?" "But we do this my way. You follow my instructions exactly. You don't touch a weapon without my permission, and if I say stop, you stop. No questions. Understood?" "Yes, sir." "And we tell your mother." Tommy's face fell. "She'll say no." "Maybe, but we don't keep secrets in this family. That's rule number 1. Tommy stared at him. "You said family." "I did." "You meant it?" Josiah picked up the rifle, checked the chamber, set it back down. "Yeah, Tommy, I meant it." Maggie said no. "Absolutely not. He's a child." "He's almost a man." Josiah kept his voice calm. "And he's right. Garrett's coming. When he does, we'll need everyone who can hold a gun." "He's 13. "I was 12 when I learned to shoot. 14 when I joined the army." "And look how that turned out." The words hung between them, sharp, cutting. Josiah's face went blank. "Joe, I'm sorry. I didn't mean—" "You did." His voice was flat. "And you're right. The war broke something in me. I won't pretend it didn't." "That's not what I—" "But your boy is different. He's got a good heart, a clear head, and he wants to protect the people he loves." Josiah met her eyes. "That's not something to fear. That's something to honor." Maggie pressed her hands to her face. "I can't lose him." "You won't. You don't know that." "No, but I know this." Josiah stepped closer. "If Garrett comes and Tommy doesn't know how to defend himself, you'll lose him for sure. If he knows how to fight, at least he's got a chance." "That's not a choice. That's a nightmare." "Welcome to the frontier, Maggie. Nightmares are all we got." She was quiet for a long moment. Then she nodded. "Fine. Teach him. But Joe," her voice hardened, "if anything happens to my son, I will never forgive you." "If anything happens to your son, I won't deserve forgiveness." Tommy learned fast. By the end of the week, he could load and fire a rifle in under 30 seconds. His aim wasn't perfect, but it was getting better. Josiah pushed him hard, and Tommy pushed back, refusing to quit, refusing to complain. "He's got his mother's stubbornness," Josiah told Maggie one evening.
Is that a compliment?
"Highest one I know." Ruth wanted to learn too.
No, Maggie said immediately. Mama,
I said no.
Tommy gets to learn. Why can't I?
Because you're a girl.
So?
Ruth's chin lifted.
Girls can shoot just as well as boys. Better sometimes. I read about Annie Oakley. She's the best shot in the whole country, and she's a woman.
This isn't a show, Ruth. This is life and death.
Exactly, which is why I should know how to defend myself.
Ruth's voice dropped.
Mama, you saw how that man looked at me. Garrett. I saw it too. I know what he wanted.
Maggie's blood ran cold. Ruth.
If he comes for me, I want to be able to fight back. I don't want to be helpless. I don't want to be a victim.
Her voice cracked.
Please, Mama. Please.
Maggie looked at her daughter, at this girl who had grown up too fast, who had seen too much, who carried burdens no child should carry. Fine, she whispered. Ruth's face lit up.
But Joe trains you,
and you never, ever go anywhere alone. Understood?
Yes, Mama.
And Ruth?
Yes?
If Garrett comes anywhere near you, you shoot first and ask questions later. Ruth's eyes went hard.
I intend to.
On the 8th day, a rider appeared on the ridge. Josiah saw him first. He grabbed his rifle and positioned himself in front of the cabin. Everyone inside, now! The children scrambled to obey. Maggie stayed on the porch, pistol in hand. I said inside. And I said no. Josiah's jaw tightened, but he didn't argue. The rider came closer. As he crested the ridge, Maggie saw his face and felt her breath catch. It was the man from the creek. Hank. The one who had warned them about Garrett. Whitmore! Hank pulled his horse to a stop 30 feet away. His face was pale, drawn. You need to leave. Tonight. Why? Garrett's moving. 30 men, maybe more. They're coming for you. 30 men. Maggie felt the ground tilt beneath her feet. When? Tomorrow, dawn, maybe sooner. Hank's horse danced nervously. I couldn't get away before now. He's got men watching everyone. Why warn us? You work for him. I did. Past tense. Hank's face twisted. He killed my brother yesterday. Said Marcus talked too much. Said he was a liability. His voice broke. Shot him in the head like he was putting down a lame horse. I'm sorry. Don't be sorry. Be gone. Hank wheeled his horse around. There's a pass through the mountains, 10 miles north. It'll take you to Fort Collins. The army's there. Garrett won't follow you past the fort. I'm not running. Hank stared at him. You got 5 children in there, Whitmore. A woman. You want them to die for your pride? This isn't about pride. It's about standing up, about saying enough. That's real noble. It's also real stupid. Hank shook his head. 30 men. 30. Even you can't beat those odds. Maybe not, but I can make it cost him. Hank was quiet for a long moment. You're a damn fool, Joe Whitmore. Probably. God help you. He rode away without looking back. Maggie's hands were shaking. Joe. I know.
30 men.
I know.
We can't. There's no way.
There's always a way. He turned to face her. But you and the children should go. Take the wagon. Head for the pass. I'll hold them off as long as I can.
No.
Maggie, I said no. Her voice was steel.
We stay together. All of us. That's what you said. That's what family does.
This isn't about family. This is about survival.
It's both.
Maggie, please. His voice cracked. I can't watch you die. I can't watch those children die. Not again. I can't. She grabbed his face in her hands, forced him to look at her. Listen to me, Joe Whitmore. I spent 2 years running. 2 years being afraid. 2 years watching my children suffer because I was too scared to stand and fight. Her eyes blazed. That ends now. Here. Tonight. Maggie, you gave me a home. You gave my children hope. You made us believe we could be more than survivors. Her voice dropped. I'm not leaving you to die alone. Not now. Not ever. Josiah stared at her. His eyes glistened. You barely know me. I know enough. I'm not worth dying for. That's not your decision to make. For a long moment, neither of them spoke. Then Josiah leaned forward and pressed his forehead against hers. All right, he whispered. All right. We fight together. We fight together. That night they prepared for war. Josiah showed Maggie the rifle positions, the escape routes, the places where the land could be used against attackers. Tommy practiced loading and reloading until his fingers bled. Ruth learned to aim for center mass and not flinch at the kick. Sam wanted to help. You can help by keeping your sisters safe, Maggie told him. That's the most important job of all. But I want to fight. Fighting isn't always about guns, sweetheart. Sometimes it's about protecting the people who can't protect themselves. Sam considered this. Like Lucky? Exactly like Lucky. Okay. His small face hardened. I'll protect them. I promise. I know you will. At midnight, Maggie found Josiah on the porch, staring at the stars. You should sleep. Can't. Me neither. She sat beside him. Their shoulders touched. I keep thinking about Ellen, he said quietly. About what she'd say if she could see me now. What do you think she'd say? Probably that I'm an idiot for getting attached again. That almost smile crossed his face. She always said I had a weakness for strays. Is that what we are? Strays? No. He looked at her. Your family. Maggie's heart squeezed. Joe, I know it's too soon. I know we barely know each other. But I've been alone for 10 years. And in the past week, I felt more alive than I have since... He stopped. Since before. I feel it too. You do? Yes. Her voice caught. I thought I'd never feel anything again after Patrick. Thought that part of me was dead. But then you stepped forward at that auction, and you looked at me like I was worth something, and I... She couldn't finish. Josiah took her hand. Whatever happens tomorrow, he said, I want you to know something. What? I don't regret it. Any of it. The $300. Bringing you here. Putting myself between you and Garrett. His voice roughened. Even if I die tomorrow, I don't regret a single moment. Joe. Because you made me feel human again. You and those children. You gave me something to live for. Tears streamed down Maggie's face. You're not going to die tomorrow. Maybe not. But if I do, you're not. She grabbed his face. Do you hear me? You're not dying. Not tomorrow, not for years. We're going to fight, Garrett, and we're going to win, and we're going to build a life here. Together. Maggie, promise me. He looked at her. Those gray eyes, so full of pain, so full of fear, so full of something that looked almost like love. I promise. Good. Then she kissed him. It wasn't soft. It wasn't gentle. It was desperate and fierce and full of everything they couldn't say. Years of loneliness. Years of grief. Years of wanting something they'd convinced themselves they couldn't have. When they finally pulled apart, both of them were trembling. "Well," Josiah said, his voice rough, "that was unexpected." "Was it?" "No." He almost smiled. "I've been wanting to do that since the moment I saw you standing on that platform, telling that whole town to go to hell." Maggie laughed. It was a watery sound, but real. "I didn't tell them to go to hell." "You didn't have to. Your eyes said it for you." They sat together in the darkness, hands intertwined, watching the stars wheel overhead. Tomorrow, 30 men would come to destroy them. But tonight they had this, and for now, it was enough. The sun rose blood red over the mountains. "They're coming," Tommy said from his position by the window. "I can see dust on the ridge." Maggie's hands tightened on her rifle. "How many?" "Can't tell yet. A lot." Josiah moved to stand beside her. "Remember what I taught you. Breathe, aim, squeeze. Don't think, just react." "I remember." "And if things go bad, if they breach the cabin, you take the children through the cellar. There's a tunnel that leads to the creek. Run and don't look back." "I'm not leaving you." "Maggie, I said I'm not leaving you." He looked at her. For a moment she thought he would argue. Then he nodded. "All right. Together." "Together." The riders appeared over the ridge. 20, 30, more. At their head, mounted on a black horse, rode Ezra Garrett. "Whitmore!" His voice carried across the valley. "Come out and face me like a man!" Josiah stepped onto the porch. "I'm here, Garrett." "I see you've made yourself comfortable."
Nice little family you've got." Garrett smiled that terrible smile. "Be a shame if something happened to them." "This is between you and me. Leave them out of it." "Oh, it's far too late for that." Garrett urged his horse forward. "You should have thought about consequences before you stuck your nose where it didn't belong, before you ruined everything I'd built." "I told the truth, that's all. The truth cost me my reputation, my business, my fiancée." Garrett's voice hardened. "Ellen was supposed to be mine, Whitmore, until you poisoned her against me." Maggie's blood ran cold. Ellen. Josiah's Ellen. She looked at him. His face had gone pale. "That's right," Garrett said softly. "I know what you did. You stole her from me, made her believe your lies, took the only woman I ever loved." "I didn't steal anyone. Ellen made her own choice." "She chose wrong." Garrett's composure cracked. "She chose you, and then she died, and I never got to—" He stopped, composed himself. "But that's ancient history. Today, we settle accounts. What do you want, Garrett?" "What I've always wanted. Everything you have." His eyes moved past Josiah to the cabin, starting with that pretty widow and her daughters. Josiah raised his rifle. "Over my dead body." "That can be arranged." Garrett raised his hand. The riders behind him drew their weapons. 30 guns pointed at the cabin, and inside, Maggie Callahan held her children close and prayed for a miracle she didn't believe in. Josiah didn't move. His rifle stayed trained on Garrett's chest. "You want me dead? Come get me yourself. Don't hide behind 30 hired guns." Garrett laughed. "Why would I do that? I've waited 10 years for this moment. I intend to savor it." "Coward." "Practical." Garrett leaned forward in his saddle. "Here's what's going to happen, Whitmore. You're going to put down that rifle. You're going to walk out into this yard, and you're going to watch while my men take everything you love. And if I don't, then we burn the cabin with everyone inside. Your choice." Inside, Maggie's hands shook on her rifle. She could hear every word through the thin walls, could hear the death sentence in Garrett's voice.
Mama. Ruth's voice was steady, but her face was white. What do we do? We wait. For what? For an opening. Tommy was at the window, rifle ready. There's too many of them. Even if we start shooting, we can't. Hush. Maggie moved to the door, pressing her eye to the crack. Joe's talking. He's buying time. Time for what? Maggie didn't answer, because she didn't know. Outside, Josiah lowered his rifle. Slowly, deliberately. That's better, Garrett smiled. Now, step off the porch. Let me say goodbye to the children first. No. Garrett, I said no. Garrett's voice hardened. You don't get goodbyes. You don't get closure. You get exactly what you gave me. Nothing. Josiah's jaw tightened, but he stepped off the porch. Good boy, Garrett dismounted. You know, I almost admire you, Whitmore. 10 years alone in these mountains, and you still manage to find someone to care about. That takes dedication. This isn't about her. Everything is about her. Garrett walked closer. Ellen chose you. She looked at me, at everything I could give her, and she chose a broken soldier with nightmares and scars. She chose a man who loved her. I loved her. The words exploded out of Garrett, raw, furious. For a moment, the mask slipped, and Maggie saw what lay beneath. Pain. Real pain. The pain of a man who had lost something precious and never recovered. I loved her more than anything, Garrett said, his voice dropping. And you took her from me. You made her believe I was a monster. You were a monster. You still are. I was a businessman. I did what needed doing to survive in this territory. Ellen knew that. She understood that until you filled her head with your righteous nonsense. I told her the truth, that's all. The truth, Garrett spat the word. Your truth. Your version. You never told her about the families you killed in the war. The villages you burned. The women you... Enough! Oh, did I hit a nerve? Garrett stepped closer. You think you're so different from me, Whitmore. You think you're the hero of this story? You're not. You're just a killer with better excuses. Josiah's hands clenched at his sides. Whatever I did in the war, I did because I was ordered to. What you do because you enjoy it. Maybe I do. Maybe watching people suffer is the only thing that makes me feel alive anymore. Garrett's eyes glittered. Ellen's death should have given me peace, but it didn't. I still wake up every night reaching for her, still hear her voice in my dreams. Then you understand. I understand that I'm empty, that I've been empty for 10 years, and the only thing that makes me feel anything is watching you lose everything too. Inside the cabin, Maggie's mind raced. Garrett was distracted, lost in his grief, his rage. He wasn't watching the cabin anymore. Neither were his men. They were focused on the confrontation. Tommy, she whispered, the cellar. What? Take your brother and sisters to the cellar, now, quietly. But Mama, do it. Ruth, help him. What about you? Maggie checked her rifle. I'm going to give Joe an opening. Mama, no! Ruth grabbed her arm. You can't! I can and I will. Maggie met her daughter's eyes. I love you, Ruth. I love all of you. But I'm done running. I'm done being afraid. You'll die. Maybe, but at least I'll die fighting. Ruth's face crumpled. Then she straightened her spine, just like her mother. Then I'm fighting too. Ruth! No, you said we stay together. That's what family does. Ruth picked up her rifle. I'm not going to the cellar while you die out there. I'm not. Tommy appeared at her side.
Me neither. The children. Sam's got them. He's taking them through the tunnel. Tommy's jaw was set. We stay with you. Maggie looked at her two oldest children, at the fear in their eyes, at the courage that burned brighter. All right, she said. All right, but you follow my lead, and if I tell you to run, you run. Yes, ma'am. And Tommy, aim for the ones near the horses. If we can scatter the horses, we scatter the men. Got it. Ruth, you cover the left flank. Anyone comes around that side, you shoot. I understand. Maggie took a breath, then another. On my count. 3, 2, 1. She kicked open the door. The first shot took a rider out of his saddle before anyone knew what was happening. The second scattered the horses on the right side. The third missed. But it was enough. Chaos erupted. Garrett's men scrambled for cover, confused, disoriented. Horses reared and bolted. Shouts filled the air. And Josiah moved. He lunged at Garrett, tackling him to the ground. They rolled through the dirt, fists flying, both of them fighting with the desperation of men who had nothing left to lose. Joe! Maggie fired at a rider coming toward the cabin. Missed. Fired again. Hit him in the shoulder. Keep shooting! Tommy was beside her, rifle blazing. Don't let them regroup! Ruth's gun barked from the left side of the cabin. A man went down, clutching his leg. For one wild moment, Maggie thought they might actually win. Then she heard Garrett laugh. Did you really think it would be that easy? He had a knife. Where it came from, Maggie couldn't tell. But it was pressed against Josiah's throat, and both men were on their feet now. Garrett behind Josiah, using him as a shield. Drop your weapons, Garrett's voice rang out. All of you, now! The shooting stopped. I said drop them! Maggie's rifle wavered. She looked at Josiah, at the knife blade against his skin, at the blood already trickling from a cut she hadn't seen him receive. Don't do it, Josiah said. Maggie, don't. Shut up. Garrett pressed the knife harder. One more word and I open your throat. Maggie's hands shook. Let him go. Drop your weapons first. If I drop my weapon, you'll kill us all. Probably, but this way, at least he dies slow. Garrett smiled. Your choice, Mrs. Whitmore. Watch him bleed out, or give yourself a fighting chance. Maggie looked at her children, at Tommy, his rifle still raised, at Ruth, her face pale but determined. She looked at Josiah. He shook his head, barely perceptible, a silent plea. Don't do it. Let me die. Save yourself. Maggie dropped her rifle. No! Tommy started forward. Tommy, stop! Maggie's voice was steel. Put down the gun. Mama! Now, Tommy! His face twisted with anguish, but he obeyed. Ruth followed. 3 rifles lay in the dirt. Good. Garrett released Josiah, shoving him to the ground. Very good. You see? This is how civilized people resolve disputes. You called this civilized? I call this winning. Garrett kicked Josiah in the ribs. Something you should have learned a long time ago. Garrett, Maggie stepped forward. You have what you want. You have him. Let my children go. Why would I do that? Because they're innocent. They have nothing to do with what happened between you and Ellen. Everyone is involved now. Garrett's eyes moved to Ruth. Besides, I told you, the older girl stays. The others can be sold. Over my dead body. That can be arranged. Garrett raised his hand. Boys, take the children. 2 men moved toward the cabin. And then, a shot rang out. One of the men fell. Everyone froze. What the? Another shot. Another man down.
Garrett spun, looking for the source. Who's shooting? Where? A third shot. This one caught Garrett in the shoulder. He staggered, clutching the wound. Up there! One of his men pointed toward the ridge. Riders coming! Maggie's heart stopped. Riders. Dozens of them, pouring over the ridge from the north. At their head, wearing a silver star on his chest, rode a man with a gray beard and a face like carved stone. Ezra Garrett! The marshal's voice echoed across the valley. You are under arrest for murder, arson, and conspiracy to commit kidnapping. Order your men to stand down. Garrett's face twisted with fury. You think a badge means anything out here, Marshal? This is my territory. Not anymore. The marshal raised his hand. Behind him, 30 rifles rose in unison. You're outgunned, Garrett, and outmatched. Stand down or we'll cut you down where you stand. Garrett looked at his men. Some were already backing away, hands raised. Others looked to him for guidance, fear in their eyes. Don't you dare, Garrett snarled. I own you, all of you. You don't own anything anymore. One of his men threw down his gun. I ain't dying for you. Coward! Smart. Another man dropped his weapon. Then another. And another. Within seconds, Garrett stood alone. Josiah pushed himself to his feet. Blood dripped from his split lip, his bruised ribs, but his eyes were clear. It's over, Garrett. It's not over until I say it's over. Garrett raised his knife, lunged at Josiah. Maggie moved. She didn't think, didn't hesitate, just threw herself between them. The knife caught her in the side. Mama! Ruth's scream split the air. Maggie fell. Everything went slow. The sky above her, impossibly blue. The dust rising around her. The pain, bright, sharp, stealing her breath. No, 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 no. Josiah was beside her, his hands pressed against the wound. Maggie, stay with me. Stay with me. The children. They're fine. They're safe. Look at me. Maggie, look at me. She looked. His face swam above her. Those gray eyes, so full of fear. So full of something else. Don't you dare leave me, he said. Don't you dare. You promised. Together, remember? Together. Then stay. Fight. Don't give up. I'm tired, Joe. I know you are. But you can rest later. Right now, you stay with me. Gunshots echoed in the distance. Shouts. The thunder of hooves. But Maggie couldn't focus on any of it. All she could see was Josiah's face. All she could feel was his hands pressing against her wound, trying to hold her together. Mama! Tommy's voice, broken. Mama, please! I'm all right, sweetheart. You're bleeding. I've bled before. Not like this. Josiah's hands shook. We need to get her inside, now. But Garrett... The marshal's got him. Help me carry her. Strong hands lifted Maggie from the dirt. The world tilted. Pain exploded through her body. Then darkness. She woke to firelight and the sound of children crying. Mama? Ruth's face appeared above her, tear-streaked, terrified. Mama, can you hear me? I hear you, sweetheart. Thank God, thank God. Ruth dissolved into sobs. I thought you were dead. I thought... Hush, I'm not dead. Just resting. You got stabbed. I noticed. A laugh choked out of Ruth. Hysterical. Relieved. Maggie tried to sit up. Pain lanced through her side, and she fell back with a gasp. Don't move. Josiah appeared at her other side. His face was pale, drawn. The marshal's got a doctor with him. He stitched you up, but you need to rest.
The children.
All safe, all here. Garrett? In custody. The marshal's taking him to Fort Collins for trial. Maggie closed her eyes. Let the relief wash over her. It's over. It's over.
Joe.
She reached for his hand. Found it.
I thought you were going to die.
So did I. His voice cracked. Then you threw yourself in front of that knife, and I thought I was going to lose you instead.
You didn't.
I almost did. Maggie, what you did, I'd do it again.
I know. That's what scares me.
She opened her eyes. He was looking at her with such intensity, such raw emotion, that it took her breath away. I love you, he said. I know it's too soon. I know we've only known each other a week. But I love you, Maggie Callahan. I think I've loved you since the moment you looked at that crowd and told them your children were worth more than all of them combined. Tears spilled down Maggie's cheeks.
I love you too.
You do?
Yes.
She squeezed his hand. Patrick will always have a piece of my heart. But there's room for more. There's room for you. Josiah leaned down and kissed her forehead. Gentle, reverent.
Mama!
Tommy's voice came from the doorway.
The marshal wants to talk to you.
Can it wait?
He says it's important.
Maggie sighed. Help me sit up.
You shouldn't. Joe, help me up.
He obeyed, his hands gentle as he eased her into a sitting position. The pain was fierce, but manageable. The marshal entered the cabin. He was older than he'd looked on horseback, his face weathered by years of hard service. But his eyes were kind. Mrs. Callahan, I'm Marshal Theodore Harding.
Marshal?
How are you feeling?
Like I got stabbed.
A ghost of a smile crossed his face. Fair enough. He pulled up a chair and sat. I need to ask you some questions about Ezra Garrett.
What do you want to know?
Everything, from the beginning. Maggie told him. About the auction. About Garrett's threats. About the ride north. The attack on the road. The burned homestead. About the siege and the battle and the knife in her side. The marshal listened without interrupting. When she finished, he nodded slowly. That matches what Whitmore told me, and what Garrett's own men are saying now that they're talking.
Will he hang?
If there's any justice in this territory, yes. Harding's jaw tightened. He's got blood on his hands going back 20 years.
The things his men are confessing to? He shook his head. Some of them make me ashamed to be human. How did you know to come?
Harding glanced at Josiah. A rider reached Fort Collins yesterday. Young man. Said his name was Hank. Said Whitmore Ridge was under attack and civilians were in danger. Hank. The man who had warned them. The man whose brother Garrett had killed. We rode through the night, Harding continued. Got here just in time from the looks of it. You saved our lives. You saved your own lives, ma'am. We just evened the odds.
Thank you. For coming. For believing.
It's my job. Harding stood. I'll have more questions later, but for now, you need to rest. Doctor's orders. He tipped his hat and walked out. Maggie sagged back against the pillows. The pain was getting worse, a dull throb that pulsed with every heartbeat. Rest, Josiah said. I'll be here when you wake up.
Promise?
Promise. She closed her eyes. When she woke again, it was morning. Golden light streamed through the window. Birdsong filled the air, and the sound of children laughing echoed from outside. Maggie sat up slowly, testing her body. The pain was still there, but duller now, more manageable.
Mama?
Lily appeared in the doorway.
You're awake. I'm awake, sweetheart.
Lily ran to her, throwing small arms around her neck.
I was so scared. Ruth said you might die.
I'm not dying. Not today.
Promise?
Promise. One by one, the other children came to see her. Sam with a million questions. Rose with tears and hugs. Ruth, still pale, still shaken, but managing a smile. Tommy, trying to be stoic, but clutching her hand like he'd never let go. "Where's Joe?" Maggie asked. "Outside, talking to the marshal." Tommy's voice was subdued. "They're taking Garrett to Fort Collins today." "Good." "Mama?" Tommy hesitated. "When you jumped in front of that knife—" "Yes?" "That was the bravest thing I've ever seen." Maggie cupped his face in her hands. "Protecting the people you love isn't brave, sweetheart. It's just what you do." "But you could have died." "So could you. When you stood beside me with that rifle. When you refused to run." She smiled. "I was so proud of you, Tommy. I'm still proud of you." His eyes glistened. "I love you, Mama." "I love you too, sweetheart. More than you'll ever know." Josiah appeared in the doorway. "Marshall's leaving. He wants to say goodbye." Maggie pushed herself to her feet, swayed. Josiah was at her side in an instant, steadying her. "You shouldn't be walking." "I'll walk if I want to walk." But she leaned on him anyway. "Help me outside." The morning air was cool and fresh. Maggie breathed it in, feeling it fill her lungs. After days of fear and violence, it tasted like freedom. Harding sat on his horse at the edge of the yard. Behind him, a dozen riders flanked a prison wagon. Inside the wagon, Ezra Garrett sat in chains, his fine clothes torn and dirty, his face blank with shock. "Mrs. Callahan," Harding tipped his hat. "You're looking better." "I'm feeling better. Thank you again, Marshal." "Just doing my job." He paused. "Take care of yourself. And those children. They've got a good mother. And now they've got a good father, too." Harding glanced at Josiah, nodded. "I believe they do." He kicked his horse into motion. The column moved out, heading south toward the ridge. Garrett's eyes found Maggie as the wagon rolled past. They held no rage anymore, no hatred, just emptiness. "Whitmore!" he called out. "This isn't over. You hear me? This isn't—" The wagon passed out of sight. Maggie leaned against Josiah, exhausted but whole. "It's over," she said. "It's over," he agreed. They stood together in the morning light, watching the dust settle on the road south. And somewhere inside the cabin, Lucky the dog barked at a butterfly, and Rose giggled, and Sam asked Ruth if she thought they could teach the dog to do tricks. Life went on. That night, after the children were asleep, Maggie and Josiah sat on the porch, watching the stars emerge. "I've been thinking," Josiah said. "About what?" "About us. About the future." He paused. "About what happens now." "What do you want to happen?" He was quiet for a long moment. "I want to build more rooms on the cabin, enough for all the children to have their own beds. I want to teach Tommy everything I know about running a ranch. I want to watch Ruth grow into the woman she's meant to be. I want to hear Sam's ridiculous questions and Lily's stories and Rose's laughter." His voice roughened. "I want to wake up every morning next to you. I want to grow old beside you. I want to be a husband and a father and all the things I thought I'd never get to be again." Maggie's heart swelled. "That sounds perfect. But only if you want it too. I won't force you into anything. If you need time, if you want to leave, Joe, I'll understand. I'll give you whatever you need. Money, supplies, a wagon. You can go anywhere you want. Start over. Find someone better than—" "Joe." He stopped. "I don't want anyone else." Maggie took his face in her hands. "I don't want to leave. I want to stay here with you and build a life together." "You're sure?" "I've never been more sure of anything." He kissed her then, soft and slow and full of promise. When they pulled apart, Maggie was smiling. "We should probably make it official," she said. "Make what official?" "The marriage. We signed papers at the auction, but that was just—" She shrugged. "Paperwork. If we're going to do this, we should do it right." "You want a wedding?" "Nothing fancy. Just the children. Maybe the Reverend from Copper Springs, if he's willing to make the ride." She paused. "Unless you don't want—" "I want." His voice was fierce. "I want everything. A wedding, a family, a future." "Then let's do it." "When?" "Whenever you're ready." He smiled. That real smile. The one she'd only seen glimpses of before. The one that transformed his whole face. "I've been ready for 10 years, he said. "I was just waiting for you." Maggie laughed. It was a good sound, a healing sound. "Then I guess we shouldn't keep waiting." "No," he agreed. "I guess we shouldn't." They sat together under the stars, making plans for a future neither of them had dared to dream of. And in the cabin behind them, 5 children slept soundly, for the first time in years, safe in the knowledge that they were loved, that they were wanted, that they were home. The nightmare was over. The healing had begun. 3 weeks after the battle, Maggie's wound had healed enough for her to walk without help. She found Josiah in the barn at dawn, brushing down the horses like he did every morning. He didn't hear her approach, and for a moment she just watched him. The way his hands moved, gentle despite their roughness. The way he murmured to the animals, soft words she couldn't quite hear. "You're supposed to be resting." She jumped. He hadn't turned around. "How did you know I was there?" "I always know when you're there." He set down the brush and faced her. "Doctor said another week off your feet." "Doctor also said I was lucky to be alive. I figure I've earned the right to ignore his advice." That almost smile crossed his face. Stubborn woman. "You knew that when you bought me." "I did." He moved closer. "Doesn't mean I have to like it when you risk your health." "I'm fine, Joe." "You got stabbed 3 weeks ago." "And I'm still standing." Maggie took his hands. "Stop worrying." "Can't help it. Worrying about you is pretty much all I do these days." She laughed. It was a good sound, a healing sound. "The children are awake," she said. "Ruth's making breakfast. Tommy wants to know if you're still teaching him to brand cattle today." "If his mama says it's all right." "His mama says it's fine." She squeezed his hands. "He looks up to you, Joe. They all do." "I don't know why. I'm just a broken old rancher with too many ghosts." "You're more than that. You're the man who saved us. The man who fought for us. The man who—" She stopped. "The man who what?" Maggie looked up at him. Those gray eyes, so guarded when she'd first met him, were open now, vulnerable. "The man I love," she said quietly. "The man I want to spend the rest of my life with." Josiah's breath caught. "Maggie, I know we said we'd wait. I know we said we'd take things slow. But I almost died, Joe. I spent 3 days thinking about all the things I hadn't said, all the moments I'd wasted being careful." She stepped closer. "I don't want to be careful anymore." "What do you want?" "I want to marry you. For real this time. Not just papers from an auction. A real wedding, with our children as witnesses and vows that mean something." "When?" "Today." Josiah stared at her. "Today?" "Why not? The Reverend's coming through this afternoon on his way to Fort Collins. Ruth told me yesterday. Said she saw it posted at the general store." "You've been planning this." "Maybe a little," she smiled. "Is that a yes?" For a long moment, he didn't answer. Then he pulled her into his arms and held her so tight she could barely breathe. "That's a yes," he said against her hair. "That's absolutely a yes." The children took the news with varying degrees of enthusiasm. "Finally!" Ruth threw her hands up. "I've been waiting weeks for you two to figure this out." "You have?" "Mama, please, the way he looks at you, the way you look at him. Even Sam noticed, and Sam doesn't notice anything." "I notice things," Sam protested.
Name one thing you noticed this week. I noticed that Lucky learned to sit. That doesn't count. It counts to me. Children, Maggie's voice carried that familiar warning. Focus. We're having a wedding today. Today? Tommy frowned. That's not much time to prepare. We don't need much. Just family. Just us. But Mama, what about a dress? What about flowers? What about Ruth? Maggie took her daughter's hands. I've had one fancy wedding. Your father and I spent months planning it. We had flowers and music and 100 guests. Her voice softened. And you know what I remember most? His face when I walked down the aisle. Nothing else mattered. Ruth's eyes glistened. You still miss him. Every day. But missing him doesn't mean I can't love someone new. It just means my heart is big enough for both. Do you think Pa would approve? Of Mr. Whitmore? Maggie was quiet for a moment. She thought about Patrick, about his laugh, his kindness, his endless optimism, about the way he'd always said that love was meant to be shared, not hoarded. I think your father would want me to be happy, she said finally. And Joe makes me happy. Then I'm happy too. Ruth hugged her tight. I love you, Mama. I love you too, sweetheart. The Reverend arrived at 3 o'clock. Reverend Marcus Cole was a tall, thin man with kind eyes and a voice that could fill a church without straining. He'd known Josiah for years, had presided over Ellen's funeral, in fact, and when he heard about the wedding, he'd rerouted his entire journey to perform the ceremony. Joe Whitmore getting married again, Cole said, shaking his head. Never thought I'd see the day. Neither did I, Reverend. She must be something special. Josiah looked at Maggie, who was helping Lily weave wildflowers into Rose's hair. She is, he said quietly. She really is. They held the ceremony on the ridge overlooking the valley, the same spot where Charlotte had stood that first day, declaring she could see forever. The children gathered in a semicircle. Ruth stood beside her mother, holding a small bouquet of wildflowers she'd picked that morning. Tommy stood beside Josiah, trying to look serious but unable to hide his smile. Sam held Lucky's collar to keep the dog from running off. Lily and Rose stood hand in hand, their faces solemn with the importance of the occasion. Dearly beloved, Reverend Cole began, we are gathered here today to witness the union of Josiah Whitmore and Margaret Callahan in holy matrimony. Maggie's hands trembled in Josiah's grip. You okay? He whispered. Perfect, she whispered back. Absolutely perfect. Marriage, Cole continued, is not a decision to be made lightly. It is a covenant between two people, a promise to stand together through joy and sorrow, through plenty and want, through sickness and health. He looked at Josiah. Joe, I've known you for 15 years. I've seen you at your best and your worst. I've watched you build a life in these mountains, and I've watched you nearly destroy yourself with grief. His voice softened. But I've never seen you look at anyone the way you look at this woman. Josiah's jaw tightened. He didn't speak. And Maggie, Cole turned to her. I only met you an hour ago, but I can already see why Joe risked everything for you. You have a strength in you, a fire, the kind of spirit that builds empires and raises children and survives whatever life throws at it.
Maggie felt tears prick her eyes. Do you have vows you'd like to share? Josiah cleared his throat. I'm not good with words. Never have been. But I'll try. He took a breath. Maggie, when I saw you on that auction platform, I saw a woman the whole world had given up on. A woman who had every reason to break, but didn't. A woman holding her children together with nothing but love and willpower. His voice cracked. I thought I was dead inside. Thought I'd never feel anything again. But you proved me wrong. You and your stubborn courage and your impossible children and your refusal to let me push you away. Lily giggled. Maggie shushed her with a look. I can't promise I'll be perfect, Josiah continued. I've got scars and nightmares and more baggage than any man should carry. But I can promise I'll try. Every day for the rest of my life. I'll try to be the man you deserve. Maggie wiped her eyes. My turn? Your turn. She took a breath. Joe, 2 months ago I knelt in the dirt and begged a stranger not to take my children. I had nothing. No money, no home, no hope. I thought my life was over. Her voice steadied. Then you stepped out of the crowd. You looked at me, not through me, not past me, at me, and you said $300 like I was worth something, like my children were worth something. You were, Josiah said. You are. Let me finish, she smiled through her tears. That day, you didn't just buy our freedom. You gave me back my faith. Faith that good men still existed. Faith that my children would grow up safe. Faith that I could love again, even after losing Patrick. She squeezed his hands. I can't replace Ellen. I won't try. But I can love you with everything I have. I can stand beside you and fight beside you and build a life with you. And I can promise that no matter what comes, I will never, ever leave you. I now pronounce you husband and wife, Reverend Cole smiled. Joe, you may kiss your bride. Josiah pulled Maggie into his arms and kissed her. The children cheered. Lucky barked. Somewhere in the distance, a hawk cried out, riding the wind toward the mountains. And Maggie Callahan, Maggie Whitmore, felt something she hadn't felt in years. Complete. The celebration was simple but joyful. Ruth had baked a cake with the last of their sugar. Tommy had carved a small wooden heart as a wedding gift. Sam presented them with a detailed drawing of the whole family, including Lucky, standing in front of the cabin. That's beautiful, sweetheart. Maggie traced the figures with her finger. You're getting so good at drawing. Joe taught me. Sam beamed at his stepfather. He showed me how to do the shading. Maggie looked at Josiah with surprise. You draw? Used to. Haven't in years. He shrugged. Sam asked me to teach him, so I figured I'd try to remember. He's really good, Mama. Sam tugged at her sleeve. Show her the one you did of Ellen and Jacob. The air in the room shifted. Josiah went still. Sam, Ruth hissed. That's private. But it's really good. I think Mama would like to see... It's all right. Josiah's voice was quiet. She should see it. He walked to the corner of the cabin, to a small trunk Maggie had never opened. He lifted the lid and pulled out a leather folder, worn and creased from years of handling. Inside was a drawing. A woman with curly hair and a warm smile. A small boy with his father's gray eyes. Ellen and Jacob. Oh, Joe, Maggie's voice caught. It's beautiful. I did it from memory, a few months after they passed. I was afraid I'd start forgetting their faces. He traced the edge of the paper. Some nights, this is the only way I can see them clearly anymore. You should hang it. What? You should hang it, in the cabin, where everyone can see. Maggie took his hand. They're part of this family too, Joe. Even if they're gone, they should be remembered. Josiah stared at her. You wouldn't mind?
Why would I mind? You loved them. That doesn't threaten me. It just shows me what kind of man you are.
For a moment, Josiah couldn't speak. Then he pulled her into a fierce embrace.
How did I get so lucky?
He whispered against her hair.
You paid $300 at an auction. That's how.
He laughed. A real laugh. The first one she'd ever heard from him.
Worth every penny.
That night, after the children were asleep, Maggie and Josiah sat on the porch, watching the stars.
I've been thinking, Maggie said. About what? About the future. About what we're going to build here.
What do you want to build?
She was quiet for a moment. I want Ruth to have choices, not just marriage and motherhood, but real choices. Education, independence, the things I never had.
We can send her to school in Fort Collins. There's an academy there for young women.
You'd do that?
I'd do anything for those children. They're mine now, too.
Maggie's heart swelled.
And Tommy? Tommy wants to learn ranching. Says he wants to take over this place someday. Josiah shrugged. I figure I'll teach him everything I know. By the time he's 20, he'll be better at this than I ever was.
He looks up to you so much.
I know. Scares the hell out of me.
Why?
Because I'm not sure I deserve it. He paused.
I'm not sure I deserve any of this. Joe, I know what you're going to say, that I'm a good man, that I saved your family, that I fought for you. He shook his head. But I've done things, Maggie, bad things, things that keep me up at night. The war. Not just the war, after the war, after Ellen died. His voice dropped. I wanted to die, Maggie. For years, I wanted to die. I took risks no sane man would take, picked fights I had no business picking. It's a miracle I'm still alive. But you are alive. Because of you. He turned to face her. The night before the auction, I was ready to end it. Had my rifle loaded, had my letter written. I was going to ride up to the ridge and never come back. Maggie's blood went cold. Joe. But then I went into town for supplies, and I saw the auction notice. And something made me stay. His eyes glistened. Something made me show up the next morning. Something made me look at you standing on that platform and think, she's fighting. Why can't I? You saved us. No, you saved me. He took her hands. You and your children. Your stubbornness, your courage, your refusal to give up even when everything was against you. Tears streamed down Maggie's face. I didn't know. I didn't want you to know. I was ashamed. There's no shame in struggling, Joe. There's only shame in giving up. I almost did. But you didn't. That's what matters. She cupped his face in her hands. Promise me something. Anything. Promise me that if you ever feel that way again, you'll tell me. You won't carry it alone. You'll let me help. His jaw trembled. I promise. Good. She kissed him softly. Because I didn't survive an auction and a stabbing and 30 armed men just to lose you to your own demons. He laughed through his tears. Fair point. They held each other until the stars faded and the first light of dawn touched the mountains. A new day. A new beginning. The months that followed were the happiest of Maggie's life. Spring came early that year, melting the snow and painting the valley green. The children flourished in the mountain air. Sam's questions multiplied. Lily's stories grew more elaborate. Rose learned to ride a horse. Tommy grew 3 inches and started shaving the fuzz on his upper lip with elaborate ceremony. Ruth devoured every book she could find, already talking about the academy in Fort Collins. And through it all, Josiah was there. Steady. Constant.
a rock they could all depend on. "You're different," Maggie told him one evening. "Lighter somehow." "Am I?" "Yes. You laugh more. You smile more. You actually talk to people when we go into town." "Must be your influence." "Must be." She leaned against him. "Whatever it is, I like it." "I like it too." He pressed a kiss to her hair. "Turns out life's better when you're not trying to escape it." In May, they got word that Ezra Garrett had been hanged for his crimes. Maggie didn't feel the satisfaction she expected, just relief. And maybe, somewhere deep down, a small kernel of pity for a man who had been so consumed by bitterness that he destroyed everything he touched. "Does it feel finished?" she asked Josiah. "I don't know. Maybe. Or maybe it'll never feel finished." He paused. "But it feels like we can move on. And that's enough." It was enough. In June, Maggie realized she'd missed her monthly bleeding. She didn't tell anyone at first, didn't want to get their hopes up. But when she missed it again in July, she knew. She was pregnant. She told Josiah on a quiet evening after the children had gone to bed. "I have something to tell you." "That sounds serious." "It is." She took his hands. "Joe, I'm going to have a baby." He went completely still. "What?" "A baby. Our baby." She watched his face, suddenly nervous. Is this okay? I know we didn't plan." He kissed her. It was the most passionate kiss they'd ever shared. When he finally pulled back, there were tears streaming down his face. "Okay," he said. "Maggie, this is everything I thought I'd never have again." "You're happy?" "Happy doesn't begin to cover it." He pulled her into his arms. "I love you. I love you so much." "I love you too." They told the children the next morning. "I knew it!" Ruth's face lit up. "I knew something was different. You've been glowing for weeks." "Is it going to be a boy or a girl?" Sam demanded. "We don't know yet, sweetheart." "I hope it's a boy. Then I'll have someone to play with who isn't a girl." "Hey!" Lily protested. "What's wrong with girls?" "Nothing. I just have too many sisters already." "You can never have too many sisters." "Yes, you can. I'm living proof." Tommy watched quietly from the corner. Maggie caught his eye. "Tommy, you okay?" "Yeah, just thinking." "About what?" "About Pa." His voice was soft. "About how different things would be if he was still here." Maggie's heart ached. "Your father loved you very much, Tommy. He would have been so proud of the man you're becoming." "I know," Tommy straightened. "And I think he would have liked Joe. I think they would have been friends." "I think so too." Tommy nodded slowly. Then he walked over to Josiah and held out his hand. "Congratulations," he said. "Sir?" Josiah shook his hand solemnly. "Thank you, son." The word hung in the air between them. Son. Not just a name, a claim, a promise. Tommy's eyes glistened. "I'm going to be the best big brother this baby's ever seen." "I know you will." The baby came in February, during a snowstorm that kept them trapped in the cabin for 3 days. Maggie labored for 12 hours, while Josiah paced outside, and the children huddled together, scared and excited and unable to sleep. "Is Mama going to be okay?" Rose asked Ruth for the 100th time. "She's going to be fine. Women have babies all the time." "But she's been screaming." "That's normal. It means the baby's coming." "I don't like it." "Neither do I, but it'll be over soon." It was over at dawn. Maggie lay exhausted but triumphant, a tiny bundle in her arms. "It's a girl," she told Josiah when he finally came in. "A perfect, healthy girl." He knelt beside the bed, tears streaming down his face. "She's beautiful. She looks like you. Same gray eyes." "Poor child." Maggie laughed weakly. "Stop that. Those eyes are the first thing I fell in love with." Josiah reached out, touched the baby's cheek with one rough finger. "What should we name her?" Maggie was quiet for a moment. "I was thinking, Hope." "Hope?" "Because that's what she represents. Everything we hoped for. Everything we fought for. Everything we almost lost." She looked up at him. "What do you think?" "I think it's perfect." He kissed her forehead. "Hope Whitmore. Our daughter." The children came in one by one to meet their new sister. Ruth cried. Tommy pretended not to. Sam asked if the baby would be able to play with Lucky when she got bigger. Lily declared that Hope would definitely be the heroine of all her future stories. Rose just wanted to hold her, and when Maggie placed the tiny bundle in her arms, her face lit up with wonder. "She's so small." "You were that small once." "No, I wasn't." "Yes, you were. I remember." Rose looked at the baby, at this tiny person who was now part of their family, their strange, patchwork, beautiful family. "I'm going to protect her," Rose said solemnly. "Forever." "I know you will, sweetheart." Maggie's eyes glistened. "I know you will." That spring, they built an addition to the cabin, 2 new rooms, big enough for all the children to have proper beds. Tommy did most of the work, with Josiah guiding him through every step. "You're a natural," Josiah told him when the last board was in place. "Better than I was at your age." "You think so?" "I know so. You've got good hands. Steady. Patient." He clapped the boy on the shoulder. "Your pa would be proud." Tommy's face crumpled for just a moment. Then he pulled himself together. "Thanks, Joe." "Thank me by finishing that fence before supper." "Yes, sir." He ran off, and Maggie appeared at Josiah's side. "You're good with him." "He makes it easy." "No, he doesn't. He's stubborn and proud and carries the weight of the world on his shoulders." She smiled. "Sound like anyone you know?" "I have no idea what you mean." "Liar." He grinned and pulled her close. "How's Hope?" "Sleeping. Finally. That child has lungs like a church organ." "Gets it from her mother." "I do not have lungs like a church organ." "You do when you're angry." Maggie swatted his arm. He laughed and caught her hand, pulling her into a kiss. "I love you," he murmured against her lips. "I love you too." "Even when I'm annoying?" "Especially then." They stood together, watching their children play in the afternoon sun. Ruth reading under a tree, Tommy hammering away at the fence, Sam chasing Lucky through the grass, Lily telling Rose an elaborate story that involved pirates and princesses and a dragon named Gerald. Their family, their home, their future. Maggie thought about everything that had led them here. The auction, the fear, the violence, the love. She thought about Patrick and how much he would have loved to see their children thriving. About Ellen and Jacob, whose memory Josiah still honored every year with flowers on their graves. About all the broken pieces they'd carried with them, and how those pieces had somehow come together to create something whole. "What are you thinking about?" Josiah asked. "About how lucky we are." "Lucky?" "I know it sounds strange, after everything we've been through. But look at us, Joe." She gestured at the valley spread out before them. "We have a home. We have a family. We have each other." "We almost didn't." "But we do, and that's what matters." She leaned against him. "That's all that matters." He was quiet for a long moment. "You know what I realized the other day?" "What?" "That I'm not scared anymore. Not of Garrett, not of losing everything, not of the nightmares." He took a breath. "For the first time in 10 years, I'm not afraid to wake up in the morning." "That's because you have something to wake up for." "Yeah." He looked at her, at this woman who had walked into his life and refused to leave, at this woman who had given him back his hope, his faith, his reason to live. "I do." The sun set behind the mountains, painting the sky in shades of gold and rose. The children's laughter echoed across the valley. And somewhere in the cabin, Hope Whitmore woke from her nap and started crying for her mother. Maggie smiled. "Duty calls. I'll come with you." They walked back to the cabin together, hand in hand, ready to face whatever came next. Because that's what family did. That's what love did. That's what hope did. And Maggie Whitmore, who had been sold for $300 on a hot July afternoon, who had fought for her children against impossible odds, who had found love in the most unexpected place, knew with absolute certainty that she was exactly where she was meant to be. Home.